How's it going, everyone? It is your classmate, Ryan Cappucciano, and I'm here to teach you all about the Teach Trade strategy. I'm an adolescent education major with a concentration in English, and my unit focused on English studies, vocabulary, things like that. So let me get into it. So my unit overview and objectives. The topic for my overall unit was exploring inequalities in America through text. I think obviously this is a super relevant topic, a super important topic. I think I want to be a high school teacher, and I think as a high school teacher, students are at a very good age to understand what it means to be an advocate, what it means to recognize inequalities and privilege in society, and how to advocate for change for that. The texts that I used for this unit were Amazing Grace, The Lives of Children, and The Conscience of a Nation. It is an awesome book. It chronicles children born in the South Bronx, and it just really shows the inequalities that they face, how they get through their daily life compared to other residents around the city. You know, they live in the South Bronx, but they're maybe 5 or 6 blocks away from multi-million-dollar homes. A very good demonstration of the inequalities in America. Still I Rise, a very powerful poem written by Maya Angelou, and The Problem We All Live With, which is a famous painting by artist Norman Rockwell. The objectives, however, for this specific lesson would be that students will demonstrate their new knowledge and understanding of at least one new vocabulary word to the class and collect 3 new vocabulary note cards, which I will show you what are right now. So, Teach Trade overview. Students will begin class with this collaborative activity using some of the recorded unknown vocabulary words from the previous night's reading assignment. The previous night's reading assignment was read pages 1 to 30 in Amazing Grace and construct vocabulary overview guides for at least 5 of the words. I encourage students to record more than 5 words that they don't know to use for today's class. So the way this works is as soon as students sit down, they'll be given, maybe half will be given hard copies of dictionaries, the other half will be given Chromebooks to access online versions of dictionaries, and they'll start creating their vocabulary cards, which I have a hard copy I just made right here. So these look like this. Here's the front. Here's the back. So the front would be, the actual word in its actual textbook definition, which for this case of a reverend is of or relating to the clergy. A student will write the vocabulary word again, but accompany it with a picture. So for me, as you can tell, I'm not an artist, but I drew my best rendition of a little church. For me personally, when I see that church and I see the word reverend, I would think clearly some kind of religious connotation, a member of the clergy, pretty close to the textbook definition. On the back is the word used 3 times in a sentences, which I will share with you. Number 1, were you a reverend? Said one bank robber to the other. Number 2, the reverend was anxious to deliver his first Christmas mass. And number 3, little Sally and Sam were unbelievably bored by the reverend's service. Once students construct maybe 3 to 5 of these, or however many words they came into class with, not knowing, they'll have a chance to get out of their seats and engage in a kind of note card swapping activity. Walk around the class, get moving, and trade cards with other students. By the end of this lesson, students will share with the class one new word they've learned out loud. We'll go in a circle and share, a word you learned, describe the picture accompanying the word, and use it in a sentence. I think that this is a really, really incredible strategy, as that other students create study guides for other students. You have the tangible work of another student and how they process that vocabulary with a picture and with sentences, and you can use that to build your own vocabulary. I think that's very valuable, and I think it's just really cool, students teaching other students. The literacy standard that this hits is 910 L4C, which is consulting general and specialized reference materials, dictionaries, glossaries, thesauruses, to find the pronunciation of a word, to determine or clarify its precise meaning, part of speech, or its etymology. As I said, I'll be using Chromebooks as well, just because I want to throw some technology in there when I can. So moving on. This was the example in my mini unit. Absolve, to declare someone free from blame, guilt, or responsibility on the front of the card, the actual definition. Absolve with a picture. Again, I'm not much of an artist, but I tried to draw a judge's gavel with a little text box saying you are free to go. To me personally, that demonstrated pretty well what the word absolve meant. And then my 3 sentences: the judge absolved the man of his speeding ticket. I absolve you, shouted the exorcist, and I hope my parents absolve me from being grounded. In case anyone's wondering, these 2 words are in the first 30 pages of Amazing Grace. Rubric. This was actually attached to another rubric, another class activity, but it is a fairly simple rubric, I think, for a fairly straightforward activity. So incomplete, a student did not engage in this activity nor share work with the class, kind of whatsoever. The student just refused to do work. didn't get the credit. What are you going to do? Needs improvement. 1 point, students somewhat engaged with other students. Maybe they were not there all the way in class. They didn't really talk to as many people as they could have, or they did not give and collect at least 3 note cards, which is by the end of class, I would walk around and just make sure you had maybe 3 original note cards. If you didn't engage in that, then you wouldn't deserve the full 2 points, which is satisfactory, which is a student was heavily involved in class activity, gave and received the correct amount of note cards, and shared a new word with the class. This is actually a little contingent on my on a later slide, which I'll get to in just a moment. So how does this connect to literacy studies? Number 1, obviously, vocabulary. Teach, Trade requires students to search for clues to the meaning and pronunciation of new words, challenge students to be detectives and use bits of text information in meaningful chunks of letters first to figure out the new words. I didn't do that second part, challenging students to be detectives and use bits of text information. However, I wish I did. After reviewing that, I think that would be a pretty valuable asset to incorporate into this lesson. Maybe before students even start working with the dictionary, they can sit down and write what they think the word means in relation to the text. I think that'd be a really cool thing to add to this lesson. And also, personally, I think this is also a reading comprehension exercise. From Kane, page 175, discussion is valuable and does indeed lead to insight, learning, growth, and action. If there's anything I learned from my observations for this class is that a lot of English teachers employ collaborative activities to employ critical thinking skills. Again, this is a vocabulary activity, but if you were sitting with another group of students discussing where you found a word, how it relates to a text, I believe you're undeniably going to be somewhat discussing the text, talking about it, your thoughts on it. I think it's going to lead to valuable insight, learning, growth, and action just in the environment of being collaborative with other students. This is a very modified literature circle. It is not the same whatsoever, but that's the best thing I could relate it to. It's students getting together, collaborating. Although it's not vocabulary, it is about a reading, and I hope that students would be engaging in that as well. So, accommodations, this is what I was talking about, how my last bit of the rubric was contingent on this. Number 1, teacher will walk around the room to facilitate conversation as well as make sure struggling students have extra support in exchanging cards. Personally, for me, when I was in high school, if I didn't know anyone in the class, I was always maybe a little shy. I wouldn't be the first one to go out and offer a card with somebody or try to talk to somebody what they thought about the vocabulary. So I personally liked it when a teacher came and gave me maybe a gentle nudge, emphasis on the word gentle, but a gentle nudge between me and another student to get engaged with another, pass cards back and forth with one another, just help us get that credit for the class day. And the other accommodation is students with anxiety for public speaking may be asked to present their new vocabulary cards to the teacher after class. The last thing I would ever want to do in my class is make a student uncomfortable. As I said, I was a little shy in class. I never faced any real anxiety, and I know that's a big issue for students. I would never want to make a younger student feel anxious in my class. So, if they're feeling that way, if they feel very worried about presenting or anything like that, I would be okay if they would present with me after class, their 3 cards and their new word that they wanted to share. That's all I have. It is a fairly straightforward strategy, but I think it's a good strategy to use. It builds vocabulary, it builds collaboration with students, and I really think it does build some critical thinking skills when students are together discussing vocabulary, especially in relation to the text. Please let me know how I did, anything I did right, anything you think I could change to make this better in the future, and I look forward to everyone's responses. Thank you.